Hi, this is Otis Grand playing the blues for you and inviting you to listen to John Broughton's great blues show on KC Radio 3SER. See you soon.
Growing up, was blues always your first love musically?
Well, fortunately for me, blues was always the first music that I heard. When I was growing up, my father was an avid Nat King Cole lover. He played a lot of Nat King Cole stuff on the radio and the record, you know. But I had a neighbor when I was living in Oakland, California. I had a neighbor who was a acoustic finger-picking kind of folk blues, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he introduced me to Josh White, another great singer, but more folksy than bluesy. But that's the first record I ever bought in my life. Josh White Sings the Blues. So I played that, and I used to give this neighbor all my pocket money just to show me a few chords here and there. And then I was listening to a lot of blues on the black radio stations, which is basically that's all I heard.
Yeah. So what do you think it was about the blues that moved you initially?
You know, I mean, a lot of people ask me that. I have no idea what it is. It kind of my psyche, and you know, I'm from a family of 7 kids, and none of them are musicians. I'm the only one who wanted to do that, and I kind of had a very close affiliation to the blues because I was never a technician. I never had any music lessons. Nobody. I mean, I never really learned guitar the proper way. So I found that I could express myself emotionally a lot more with blues rather than anything a little more technical like jazz or rock or whatever that was happening there. I never really. I mean, living in San Francisco was like in the '60s was all what we called hippie bands, acid rock and stuff like that. You know, the Grateful Dead, the Jefferson Airplane, Moby Grape. You know, those kind of people that were growing up and coming out in that area. You know, what they call the San Francisco sound, and that never, ever, ever influenced me. I never heard them. My greatest moment in life, which I think has left chiseled my brains into the blues permanently, was seeing B.B. King for the first time in 1966. And he played at the Fillmore West, and he opened up for, I don't remember the band, but it was one of these acid bands.
Yeah.
And as a young B.B. King, man, he was playing loud. He had his amp turned up full. He had his horns. Sonny Freeman was on drums. He kicked ass. Yeah. No matter, I don't even remember who opened up, who played. But watching BB play like that was like, wow, I want to be like him. So for the rest of my life, everything I did was based on that moment in 1966.
He would have been at the peak of his powers, I guess, at that time.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
He was playing incredible. He was loud. He was hard. I mean, he was bending like nobody else. You know, and he had so much emotion in his playing. He was popping strings, you know, breaking strings, and this is exactly what I do now. You know, he had the facial gestures, what we call sucking eggs. You know, and if you ever see one of my live shows, I mean, it's like that. You know, in fact, I played with B.B. King, and he made that famous thing that I reminded him of himself and how he played when he was younger. And I'm saying, thank you, B, because everything I've done is based on that moment in 1966. I'm a very impressionable young man, a teenager, and of course, one of my greatest idols and influences, B.B.
Yeah. So I guess, would you call yourself a traditionalist in terms of your love of the blues?
Well, I like to call myself a classic, true blues player. I still have a big band. I still have the horns, the double bass, the piano. You know, classic blues is the word. Yeah. I have never in my life played any derivative of the blues, rock blues, jazz blues, fusion, whatever you call it. I've never played it. I have blinders, and you know, back in the 70s, people were saying, you're stupid, you're crazy. You can't have a big band on the road. You can't make any money, which was true. I wasn't making any money, but I stuck to it.
It must be hard, I guess, at times financially to take such a big band on the road with you. But obviously, it's your format, and you're strongly committed to it, regardless of the costs.
I was very committed to the big band sound, the classic blues sound, that B.B. King sound, T-Bone Walker, etc. And I never swayed. I never changed. Nobody could persuade me to do so. People were saying, hey, you're a great guitar player. Why don't you get a Marshall stack and do a power trio? You'll make a lot more money. And I didn't. I didn't change, and I didn't make a lot more money. But I stuck to it, and luckily for me, right now I run one of the very few classic horn-based big bands in Europe.
You did spend some time in France in the 70s, yeah?
Yes, I moved out of the States, and I went to France for 5 years because I heard that Luther Allison, who was one of my heroes too, had moved to Paris, France, and Memphis Slim was out there, and Mickey Baker was out there. A lot of these guys were out there doing that, so I just hauled ass and moved to Paris, France, and I was a little shocked because nothing was happening there.
Right.
I managed to survive 5 years over there and played the very, very small clubs, nothing happening really, and then moved to London, England.
Right, so it didn't...
And that's when kind of all kind of hell broke loose.
You are certainly a well-travelled artist. You have based yourself in various parts of the world at different times. Has that travelling around influenced your music in any way?
Well, first of all, that traveling around was, I left home when I was 19. And I've lived in various places in the States, including New York. I played various formations, duos, acoustic duos, just doing Robert Johnson and stuff like that. And but the only thing that movement had done for me was I met a lot of great musicians, and I saw firsthand different various styles. So that honed my skills on the guitar, and it clearly told me what I really wanted to do. You know, I have surveyed the scene. I know what's going on, and I wanted the big band.
Yeah. So what sort of blues scene awaited you when you arrived in England? Did you have any preconceived notions of what to expect when you got there?
No, I mean, my only preconceived notion was like, wow, the 60s blues boom in Britain was pretty good with Peter Green and Eric Clapton, John Mayall, and everything like that. Hey, I mean, I can find better musicians in London, England. Again, I was disappointed because the scene had shifted away from that, and there were very few blues bands. The ones that are working the scene were like harmonica-based or rock blues, you know. Dr. Feelgood, Red Rice and Beans,
Yep.
9 Below Zero were still operating the scene, but you know, those are real what I call British hard blues bands. And then I knew all of a sudden, I mean, the penny didn't have to drop. I knew all of a sudden there was a niche for my big band sound. And I jumped right in, and I was working practically every month, every day of the month. I was doing freshers balls. I was doing art centers. I opened up for Gary Glitter. I mean, whatever they could find a slot for me, I got signed up by a good agent. Whatever they could find a slot for me, I could do it. I had a fresh sound, and people wanted to hear that. But it was very calculated.
Yeah. How difficult has it been over the years in England to find musicians sympathetic, I guess, to the music, the type of music you want to make?
Well, first of all, I was very, very disappointed that there were no drummers who could play that traditional blues shuffles. Most of the drummers in the UK were what I call shed builders. That means they would plonk along, usually play along with whatever guitar riff that was going on, you know, overload the beat. Mm-hmm. And they were not into the shuffle grooves or anything like that. And for a time, I actually had to import my drummers from the United States. You know, I'd ring up a few friends, come on over, man, and they'd come over survive for a couple of years, and move back, bring another one, and then I discovered that Scandinavia had all those great drummers and bass players. So I was bringing Swedish and Norwegian drummers over. But luckily now I found an English drummer who's my permanent drummer. He's pretty good with shuffles. But the scene in the UK was kind of not as pure as I thought, and it still isn't.
One thing you have done is, over the years, chalked up an impressive list of awards from various organisations and associations. Are there any in particular that hold pride and place for you?
Well, I mean, I'm very proud of the awards, and basically it may be a plaque on the wall or on the mantelpiece, but it's actually the recognition that I was doing something for the UK.
Yep.
And then it moved on to Europe. I was getting the European Blues Awards for Best Guitar Player. So, in my mind, it just reflected the thought that there are people who are appreciating my classic sound. They like it. And of course, I get a lot more work now because I have the only classic touring band, blues band in the whole of Europe. So the awards are pretty good. I appreciate the European Blues Awards and the UK Blues Guitarists Awards. I got some awards from Canada. My CDs have received awards for what they are, and I'm very grateful for that.
Your career has been one that has, I guess, ticked over nicely at a consistent race without ever reaching the heights of superstardom. But do you think that's probably something that's more conducive to maintaining a longevity in the business?
Well, I always said, that with blues, it's not you can't just fast track yourself to the top because it just won't work like that. I met John Lee Hooker on a tour in Europe, and he was hitting 70, and he just started making money when he was 70. B.B. King really had worked all his life touring for 40, 50 years before he started making any real money. So continuity in blues is very important,
Yeah.
And I'd rather have a very slow moving career than an upwards, shooting to the stars and nowhere else to go. I mean,
Yeah.
I look at Kenny Wayne Shepherd and Johnny Lang and everything. They've come and gone.
That's right.
So I mean, I'm not disillusioned at all that I haven't become an Eric Clapton or anything like that. Because of my stubbornness, first of all, because I refuse to put out rock albums or any commercial albums. I'm happy where I am.
Yeah, and it's on your own terms.
And it's on my own terms.
Yeah. You've steered away from doing lead vocals yourself over the years. Is that just a case of wanting to just let the guitar do the talking for you?
Well, first of all, my guitar does all the singing for me because of that. But I don't think that my voice is good enough to be recorded, and I'll tell you why. Because back in 1971, I did my first vocal record, and I hate that record so much that I will not put it out again. I will not reissue it.
Right.
But I sang on every track, and I guess I have a complex about that. I still sing live, but I will not put it on record.
On record, yeah.
I mean, it's basic. I'm a practical kind of pragmatic guy. If I can get Curtis Salgado or Sugar Ray to sing a tune and make it sound a lot better, why not?
Yeah. From all reports, yours is a very professional operation, and you're very set in your ways, and you know exactly what you want from your music and your musicians. Have you encountered any unfair criticism for that over the years?
I am a professional, first of all. I run a professional outfit, and I guess the only way to survive is to run it like a business, It's very hard when you run a big band to work without rules and strict control of the musicians. As we know, musicians have a tendency to kind of let loose on alcohol and drugs. So I have the infamous rule of no alcohol on stage, no alcohol in the dressing room, no drinking, etc. So I've run into a lot of problems with guys who like to drink, and basically I just say, well, there ain't no marriage if you don't like these rules, you better go and set up your own band.
Mm.
And it worked like that. But I do have a reputation over in the UK for being a slave driver and a hire and fire kind of guy. But that's the only reason I've survived.
Absolutely. You've gone and recorded back in America again in recent times. Has that been purely simply a case of wanting the people you wanted to work with were over there, or?
Yeah, I mean, I have all my friends over there, and I love American musicians because they're very good at what they do. I recorded one album in the UK, and it was a hair-pulling experience where I had to show everybody which part to play. Whereas if I go and work with, say, Neil Gouvin and Mudcat Ward on bass and drums, I would come up with my song, and they would go, well, then they will offer me like 3 variations of feels and rhythms, and they will go, would you like it this way or that way or this way? So I like that, and it's time saving. Studio time is very expensive. I use old-fashioned 2-inch tape, analog tape, on all my recordings, so it's very expensive, and I don't have the time to teach people. So when I go to the States, we'll be cutting like 5 records, 5 tunes a day.
Wow.
You know, and that's pretty expedient, and that's pretty economical. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
And then of course I love all those guys there. I love Curtis Salgado, Sugar Ray, and I've worked with all the best of them. You know, and I just like to do that.
Now, there was a fantastic double CD compilation put out not long ago covering your albums with Sanctuary. Did you have much input into the song selection for that?
Unfortunately, I didn't.
No.
They own, Sanctuary owns the right to all my recordings, and they hired a consultant, Neil Slavin, who was a good friend of mine, but they never called me until the record came out. Which is okay. I mean, there's a few songs that I would have liked to include, and a few songs that I'd like have kept out. But generally, it's a good compilation. Neil Slavin is a great blues journalist, and he knew what he was doing. But you know, that took the element of control away from me.
Yeah. And
I didn't like that in the beginning.
So
but I'm happy with it now.
So who are you with now?
I am with Bliss Street Records, which is basically an independent label.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with working with large record companies like Sanctuary is you really don't see any royalties.
Yeah.
You know, it's the old accounting thing. You know, and you just can't fight those giants. You're happy that they're, you know, promoting you and giving you a lot of exposure. You tend to kind of forget about making any money off of your records.
Mm-hmm. So after all these years playing the guitar, do you still find yourself learning things about the instrument?
Absolutely. I mean, before I go on stage, I have to listen to a fantastic B.B. King record, which is My Kind of Blues, a live recording. I have that on my CD player, and I've just recently shifted to an iPod. So.
Keeping up with
but I listen to it. I listen to it to maintain the kind of the spiritual influence of B.B. King, and I do that religiously before I go on stage. You know, I don't listen to anything else aside from blues. And I'm working on a new CD, which is a lot of twist blues. I'd like to combine a 60s twist sound with a twist with the blues guitar of B.B. King. And basically that's what I listen to a lot of bluegrass too. And some pedal steel guitar, honky tonk. I like Dwight Yoakam a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Buck Owens is one of my favorite. But aside from that, I mean, I'm kind of very blinkered. I kind of don't listen to anything else but blues.
Now, something I was interested to see was the Blues in Schools program that you've been involved with.
Right. Well, the Blues in Schools program was very happening in the States, and I attended one that my friend Joe Louis Walker did in the States. And I thought that was really good if I could just take that and introduce it to schools. And I managed to convince a few headmasters here. And you talk about English schools, the kids don't listen to blues.
No, I couldn't imagine.
So I went in there and I did my very first one, and this was like a private school around Surrey, and the kids loved it. I mean, they really loved it, and I played them all the blues, and I linked it to the modern sounds, the rock bands that they were listening to, and they're kind of flabbergasted. So I was called again, and then word of mouth hit, and the next school, and I have a set program, and I do it, turn a few minds, get some kids to go back and buy some blues records, and that's good.
Did it surprise you, the reaction you got?
Yes, I mean, I'm very well aware that both radio and TV in the UK wouldn't touch any blues. Would not play it, etc. They force feed the kids on this rubbish that we're listening to every day on the radio. So they haven't given the kids a chance to listen to the beauty of blues, that you and I love. So for me, I was kind of very hesitant. I thought, oh my God, they're going to hate this. The headmaster's not going to call me again. But I was very surprised that it was a very good, positive reaction, and I'm still doing it.
That's fantastic.
Whenever I have the chance, I just go out there with my my guitar and stuff, and I'll be teaching the kids and turning heads. And that's just basically the mission behind it, is to let the kids know that there's some really beautiful music out there, and we call it the blues.
So what do you think it is about the blues that makes it a music form that can transcend generations like that?
Well, first of all, the emotional and spiritual feel about the blues, that anybody can link to it, it doesn't have to be sad. You don't have to be depressed to listen to the blues. I mean, I play good time music too, that we get people dancing. But a lot of people can emotionally link to it without them knowing what it is.
Yeah.
And all they have to do is hear it once, and they're going, my God, I love that kind of music. What do you call it, Can you believe that? What do you call it? So, yeah, I mean, I play up and down the countries, and I play to a lot of people who've never heard the blues before. But, of course, I play to all the blues lovers as well.
So, with your own recordings, apart from this blues with a twist influence that you're looking at doing, is there any other particular style of album you've never done yet that you'd like to take on?
Well, I like to do what I call a world blues recording, and I have finished half of an album, and basically it's B.B. King and John Lee Hooker meets Middle Eastern grooves or Turkish pipes, and it's all there. But I'm not going to put it out now until I complete it. I know Ray Kuda had played with a few African musicians, so did Taj Mahal, but that kind of did not have the link that I want. What I want is that you'd have a Middle Eastern groove with drums and everything, and then I'll be playing my B.B. King riffs on top of it. And it works. I'm not talking about a marriage or a fusion or anything. I'm just talking about finding the best possible platform so that we can meet over there. I don't have to play quarter notes, or I don't have to play any kind of Turkish scales or stuff like that. But I would like to be able to do that. And it from what I've recorded already, it sounds pretty damn good.
Excellent. I'll look forward to that.
But that's a project in waiting.
Otis, thanks so much for your time. It's been fantastic catching up with you.
Well, John, thank you very much. You know, I've worked all over the world, but I've never worked Australia.
Oh, you should come down here.
Well, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for somebody to make me an offer.
Yeah, we have a fantastic festival season in the first quarter of the year, where you could spend 3 months here and do the blues festivals around the country.
I've heard about that.
Yeah,
I've heard about that. I'd be very, very happy to come over there and play my kind of blues for you.
oh, that'd be great. Look, I'll send you some information.
Thanks very much.
Yep, that'd be great. All the best.
Thanks. It's a pleasure.
You too. Thanks a
Nice
lot.
talking to you, John.
You too, Otis. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.